She was only 7, sitting on a cracked sidewalk clutching a worn-out teddy bear when the officer shouted at her to get up. But she couldn't. Her legs had never worked the way they should. The street was loud, sirens, car horns, voices yelling, but all she heard was the echo of one cruel command. "Move now!" She tried to speak, but fear choked her words. People stared, phones recorded, yet no one stepped forward. A small girl, motionless on the ground, crying that she couldn't walk, yet being treated like a threat. And then from across the street, a man in a black suit stopped. He saw something no one else did. What he did next would not only change her life, but reveal how cruelly the world treats those who look different. Watch until the end. Wait a second. Tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Aria lived in the small southern town of Clearwater, where smiles often hid judgment and kindness came with conditions. She had been born with a rare disability that made walking painful, almost impossible. Her mother, a single parent, worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, often leaving Aria under the care of neighbors. Despite her struggles, Aria had the brightest spirit, always humming songs, drawing pictures of birds that could fly where she couldn't. But in Clearwater, a black child in a wheelchair was an easy target. People whispered. Store owners watched too closely. Teachers looked past her raised hand. She grew used to the quiet kind of cruelty, the stares, the pity, the subtle rejection. That day, she had rolled her chair to the corner store to buy a chocolate bar. But what began as a simple errand would turn into a storm she couldn't escape. The sun had barely set when she reached the store. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered, and the cashier barely glanced up as she paid. Outside, a police cruiser rolled slowly by. The officer inside, a tall man with a tired face, had seen her before, but today something in his eyes was different. Maybe it was suspicion. Perhaps it was prejudice. A minute later, she heard the engine stop behind her. "Hey! You can't sit there!" the officer barked. She froze. "I'm waiting for my mom," she whispered, voice trembling. He stepped closer. "Don't talk back. Get up and move along," the words cut deep. She gripped the wheels of her chair, trying to show she couldn't. But before she could explain, he yanked the chair's handle, tipping it slightly. Her teddy bear fell to the ground. People began to notice. A woman recording whispered, "Is he really yelling at a disabled kid?" But no one intervened. The fear in Aria's eyes wasn't new. It was a reflection of generations who had learned that even innocence could be treated like a threat when wrapped in the wrong skin. She tried to steady herself, tears mixing with dust on her cheeks. Then across the street, a luxury car stopped. A tall man stepped out, dark skin, gray suit, eyes filled with disbelief. He was Elijah Ward, a millionaire philanthropist visiting Clearwater for a charity event. He crossed the road, ignoring the murmurs and the officer's sharp command to stay back. He knelt beside Aria, lifted her fallen teddy bear, and said softly, "You're safe now." Then he turned to the officer with a calm that carried weight. "What exactly are you doing to this child?" The crowd grew. Phones rose higher. The tension thickened like fog before a storm. The officer stammered, realizing cameras were everywhere, but his pride wouldn't let him back down. "She was loitering," he muttered. Didn't move when asked. Elijah's voice was quiet, but each word hit like thunder. "She told you she can't walk." Silence. The street fell still except for Aria's soft sobs. The officer looked down, seeing her trembling hands, the small brace strapped to her leg, the innocence he had mistaken for defiance. Elijah reached into his pocket and handed her a handkerchief. "You don't owe anyone an apology," he whispered. Then turning to the crowd, he said, This right here is what people mean when they say injustice hides in plain sight. We see it, record it, and move on. But who will stand for her when the cameras stop?" In that moment, everything changed. The officer stepped back, face pale. The world was finally watching. In the days that followed, the video spread across the internet. "Disabled black child confronted by officer" became a headline that forced Clearwater to face what it had long ignored. The police department issued apologies. The officer was suspended, and Elijah Ward funded a new community center in Aria's name, a safe place for children of all backgrounds. abilities, and colors. But for Arya, the actual change wasn't the donations or the headlines. It was the letters that began to arrive, hundreds from children around the world who said, "You're brave. You made me feel seen." Her mother cried when she read them aloud, realizing that her little girl's pain had opened the eyes of millions. Arya still couldn't walk, but she no longer felt powerless. She became a voice for those who couldn't speak, a symbol of strength in a world that too often forgets its most vulnerable. And yet, the question remained. Why did it take the intervention of a millionaire for people to see her humanity? How many others are unseen, unheard, suffering in silence? Because until compassion becomes instinct and justice becomes equal, stories like Arya's will keep repeating. Where are you watching from? And do you believe the world is finally ready to change? Take care.